My name is Audrey, I'm 29 years old, and I'm standing in front of my childhood home staring at a bright red sold sign that shouldn't be there. My mother Diane just told me she sold the house my grandmother left specifically to me, and the money is going to fund my sister Madison's luxury European vacation. I'm holding grandmother's will in my trembling hands, clearly stating the house was mine. My mother just laughed and said those 5 words that changed everything. Family helps family, sweetie. Before we dive into this unbelievable story of betrayal and redemption, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear how I fought back against my own family's shocking deception. Trust me, you'll want to stick around to see how this inheritance theft turned into something much bigger than anyone expected. 3 months ago, I sat in Riverside Memorial Chapel watching sunlight filter through stained glass windows as we said goodbye to my grandmother Rose. She was 87 when she passed, and I'd spent the last 2 years caring for her through her battle with dementia. While my mother Diane complained about the drive being too far and my sister Madison was always too busy with her social life, I moved into grandmother's guest room to be there for her. I held her hand through countless doctor appointments, made her favorite butterscotch pudding when she could barely eat, and listened to her stories about grandfather even when she told them 5 times in one afternoon. The reading of the will took place in Attorney Harold Morrison's office 1 week after the funeral. My mother arrived late, designer heels clicking impatiently on marble floors, while Madison sprawled across a leather chair scrolling through her phone. When Harold read the part about the house, grandmother's 2-story Victorian on Elm Street being left solely to me, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Madison's phone clattered to the floor as she shot up, shrieking about how unfair it was. My mother's face turned to stone, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her purse strap. Harold handed me an envelope with my name written in grandmother's shaky handwriting. Inside, her letter explained everything. She'd watched how I cared for her without expecting anything in return, how I gave up job opportunities to stay close, how I was the only one who visited before she got sick. The house wasn't just property, it was where she'd raised her family, where grandfather had built the wraparound porch with his own hands, where 50 years of Christmas mornings had unfolded. She wanted me to have it because she knew I understood its true value wasn't monetary but emotional. My mother's voice dripped honey when she suggested she help with the paperwork since I was obviously too grief-stricken to handle such complex matters. Madison had stormed out, but mother stayed, patting my hand and reminding me how overwhelming property transfers could be. She mentioned that as my parent, she only wanted to protect me from making costly mistakes. Through my tears and exhaustion, I agreed to let her handle the initial documentation. She said she'd need power of attorney just temporarily, just to sort through the estate matters efficiently. I signed where she pointed, trusting the woman who gave birth to me. 2 weeks passed before red flags started appearing. Mother kept deflecting when I asked about the property transfer timeline. She claimed the lawyers were backed up, that probate was complicated, that patience was necessary. Meanwhile, Madison's Instagram suddenly filled with posts about planning a European adventure, complete with first-class flights and 5-star hotels. When I questioned the timing, Mother accused me of being jealous and petty during our time of mourning. The truth hit me like a freight train when I drove past grandmother's house and saw that sold sign. My hands shook as I called Harold Morrison's office, only to learn he had no record of my mother contacting him about the estate. A different attorney's name appeared on the sale documents, someone who specialized in quick cash transactions. Racing to the courthouse, I discovered the nightmare's full scope. Property records showed the house had been transferred to my mother's name using documents with my signature, except it wasn't my signature at all. Confronting my mother in her pristine kitchen, I demanded answers. She didn't even pretend to be sorry. Instead, she launched into a tirade about how I was selfish for wanting to keep such a big house all to myself when Madison needed funds for her trip. Apparently, my 27-year-old sister's desire to explore European wineries and fashion weeks trumped my legal inheritance. When I pointed out the forged signature, Mother laughed and said I'd signed plenty of papers that day, how could I be sure what was real? The gaslighting was breathtaking in its cruelty. My phone buzzed with messages from Madison, each one more vicious than the last. Photos of her shopping for designer luggage accompanied by captions like "Thanks for the house, sis," and "Grandmother would want me to be happy." The final twist came when Beth, our neighbor who'd known our family for 20 years, called me aside at the grocery store. She'd overheard my mother 3 weeks before the funeral, on the phone with someone, discussing how to transfer property quickly after someone's death. My mother had been planning this before grandmother's body was even cold. That evening, I sat in my small apartment surrounded by boxes of grandmother's things I'd managed to save, holding the letter she'd written me. Her words about trusting me to preserve our family's legacy felt like a knife in my chest. My own mother had stolen not just property, but the last gift from the woman who'd shown me more love than anyone. The betrayal wasn't just about money or houses, it was about discovering that the person who should protect you most could destroy you without blinking. The next morning, I began investigating the depth of my family's betrayal with the determination of someone who had nothing left to lose. My first stop was Aunt Linda's house, my mother's younger sister who'd always played the role of supportive aunt. When I confronted her about the forged documents, her nervous laughter and inability to make eye contact told me everything. After an hour of denials, she finally cracked, admitting she'd witnessed the signature as a favor to my mother. The justification was pathetic. She claimed mother promised to help with her son's college tuition from the sale proceeds. Family helping family, just like mother said, except I wasn't considered family in their equation. Jerome, the real estate agent who handled the sale, proved surprisingly helpful once I mentioned potential legal action. Over coffee at a downtown diner, he revealed my mother had pushed for the fastest possible closing, accepting an offer $50,000 below market value. The buyer was a developer planning to demolish grandmother's Victorian and build condos. My chest tightened thinking about grandfather's hand-carved banisters becoming rubble. Jerome also mentioned my mother had seemed desperate, constantly calling about when funds would be available. The commission from such a quick sale was substantial, but even Jerome felt something was off about the urgency. Madison's European trip planning reached obnoxious levels on social media. Her itinerary included a month in Paris, 2 weeks on the Amalfi Coast, and various stops at fashion capitals. Travel bloggers estimated such a trip would cost at least $180,000, conveniently close to what mother netted from the house sale after the below-market price and various fees. When I texted Madison asking how she could afford such luxury on her retail job salary, she responded with a selfie from a high-end boutique and the words "Smart investments pay off." The cruelty of flaunting my stolen inheritance was breathtaking. My father Keith's response to the situation epitomized his 40-year marriage dynamic. When I cornered him in his home office, hoping for at least one parent to show integrity, he mumbled about mother knowing best and family finances being complicated. His refusal to look up from his computer screen while I poured my heart out spoke volumes. He'd always been the passenger in their marriage, letting mother drive every decision. When I asked if he knew about the forgery, his guilty silence was answer enough. He knew, he'd always known, and he'd chosen comfortable complicity over protecting his daughter. The conspiracy web expanded when cousin Stephanie, Linda's daughter, accidentally revealed more during a family barbecue I wasn't supposed to attend. After a few drinks, she mentioned how exciting Madison's trip would be and how nice that everyone would benefit from grandmother's death. When I pressed her, she clumsily tried to backtrack but eventually admitted there'd been family discussions about the inheritance. Apparently, mother had promised various relatives small payouts once the house sold, buying their silence and support. My inheritance had become a family slush fund before grandmother was even buried. Technology became my ally when I discovered my mother's email was still logged into grandmother's tablet. The digital trail revealed months of planning between mother and Madison. Emails dating back 6 months discussed European hotels, with Madison writing "Once Gma kicks it, we're golden." My mother's responses included researching property transfer laws and quick sale strategies. One particularly damaging thread showed mother asking Madison to research which countries were best for hiding assets. They'd planned every detail while I was spoon-feeding grandmother her meals and reading her favorite psalms. Uncle Raymond, my mother's older brother who lived in Portland, provided unexpected insight when I called him. He distanced himself from the family years ago, and now I understood why. He revealed this wasn't Mother's first inheritance theft. 30 years ago, when their Aunt Sophia died, Mother had manipulated the estate distribution, leaving their youngest sister Carla with nothing. The family pattern of financial predation stretched back decades. Raymond had kept documents from that incident, which he offered to send me, saying he'd always wondered when Mother would strike again. Digging through public records and old family documents, I uncovered a pattern of financial manipulation that made my stomach turn. Mother had taken loans against grandmother's house over the years, forging her signature on equity lines. She'd drained grandmother's savings accounts gradually, always with excuses about medical bills or home repairs that never happened. The theft hadn't started with the house, it was merely the final act in years of elder financial abuse. My grandmother, in her dementia-clouded final years, never stood a chance against her own daughter's greed. The most painful revelation came from Margaret, grandmother's best friend from church. She visited me with a box of photographs and letters, wanting to share memories. Among them was a letter grandmother had written but never sent, expressing fear about what would happen to her house after she died. She'd noticed money going missing but felt trapped, dependent on Mother for care I didn't know she needed. The letter mentioned wanting to tell me but being convinced by Mother that I was too busy with my own life. The manipulation had isolated grandmother from the one person actually willing to help her. By the end of my investigation, the conspiracy's full scope was clear. This wasn't just Mother taking advantage of a situation, it was a coordinated family effort to steal my inheritance. Aunt Linda, cousin Stephanie, even my complicit father, all had played roles in the theft. Madison wasn't just a beneficiary but an active participant who'd spent months planning her luxury vacation on my grandmother's legacy. The family I'd grown up trusting had revealed themselves as calculating predators who saw grandmother's death as a financial opportunity. Standing in my apartment, surrounded by evidence of their betrayal, I realized I wasn't just fighting for a house anymore. I was fighting against an entire family's corruption. Monica Chen came highly recommended as an estate attorney who specialized in inheritance fraud cases. Sitting in her downtown office, I spread out my evidence across her mahogany desk like a detective presenting a case. She studied each document carefully, occasionally making notes or asking pointed questions. After 2 hours of review, she looked at me with a mixture of sympathy and determination. The case was strong, she said, but warned that family cases were always the ugliest. When I asked what she meant, she pulled out statistics showing that inheritance fraud within families had conviction rates lower than stranger fraud because witnesses often refused to testify against relatives. The first step was filing an emergency injunction to freeze any remaining assets from the house sale. Monica worked through the weekend preparing documents, and by Monday morning, we were in front of Judge Patricia Williams requesting immediate action. The judge, reviewing our preliminary evidence, granted a temporary freeze on my mother's and Madison's accounts. The court officer serving the papers later told me my mother had screamed so loudly, neighbors called the police thinking someone was being attacked. Madison's reaction was captured on her Instagram stories, a tear-filled rant about how cruel life was being cut short by a vindictive sister. Within 48 hours of filing our legal action, my mother launched her counterattack. She began calling my extended family, spinning a tale of my supposed drug addiction and mental instability. According to her version, I'd become obsessed with grandmother's house because I needed money for my habit. She claimed the power of attorney was necessary because I'd been high during the funeral proceedings. The lies spread through our family like wildfire, with relatives I'd known since childhood suddenly treating me like a dangerous stranger. My phone filled with concerned messages asking if I needed rehab, while others simply blocked me entirely. The character assassination escalated when Mother showed up at my workplace, Brennan Marketing Associates, demanding to speak with my supervisor. She told anyone who would listen that I was stealing from family members to support my non-existent drug habit, that she was trying to get me help but I'd become violent. Security eventually removed her, but the damage was done. Human Resources called me in for a meeting where I had to provide drug test results and explain the family situation. Though they were understanding, the constant drama began affecting my work relationships. Colleagues whispered when I passed, and important projects started going to others. Madison's contribution to the sabotage campaign came through social media terrorism. She posted edited photos suggesting I was unhinged, created fake screenshots of threatening messages I'd never sent, and encouraged her followers to leave negative reviews on my company's page. Her creativity and cruelty reached new heights when she posted photos of grandmother's jewelry, claiming I'd stolen them before the funeral. The truth was that grandmother had given me those pieces during our last lucid conversation, but Madison's thousands of followers didn't care about facts. Derek, my boyfriend of 3 years, reached his breaking point during a particularly ugly confrontation with Aunt Linda at our favorite restaurant. She'd followed us there, causing a scene about family loyalty and accusing me of tearing everyone apart for money. When she threw a glass of wine in my face while calling me a gold digger, Derek simply stood up and walked out. His later text explained he couldn't handle the constant drama, that he'd signed up to date me, not my entire toxic family. The abandonment stung, but I couldn't blame him for escaping what I couldn't. Financial warfare became Mother's next weapon when I discovered she'd drained the joint savings account we'd maintained since my college days. The account, containing $50,000 I'd saved over 7 years, was legally accessible to both of us. When I confronted the bank, they showed me security footage of Mother making the withdrawal the day after I'd filed the legal injunction. She'd taken every penny, leaving me with just my checking account and the mounting legal bills Monica had warned would be substantial. My financial cushion for fighting this battle had been stolen by the very person I was fighting. Private investigator Carlos Rivera brought the first good news I'd had in weeks. Monica had hired him to investigate Mother's financial history, and he'd uncovered a goldmine of incriminating information. My mother had been hiding a severe gambling addiction for years, frequenting casinos across state lines and racking up debts with some questionable people. The house sale money wasn't just funding Madison's vacation, it was paying off dangerous debts. Carlos had photographs, casino records, and even contact information for some of the people Mother owed money to. Suddenly, her desperate urgency to sell the house made perfect sense. The most crucial evidence came from Margaret, grandmother's friend, who'd been documenting grandmother's concerns for years. She provided dated photographs of grandmother looking distressed while Mother handled her finances, recordings of phone conversations where grandmother expressed fear about missing money, and most importantly, a video from 2 years ago where grandmother clearly stated she wanted the house to go to me because she didn't trust Mother. While not a legal will, the video provided powerful evidence of grandmother's true intentions and mental state before the dementia progressed. Mother's response to our mounting evidence was hiring Bradley Thornton, an attorney known for taking any case if the money was right. He immediately filed countersuits claiming defamation, emotional distress, and elderly abuse on my part for supposedly manipulating a sick woman into leaving me the house. The legal papers alleged I'd isolated grandmother from her loving family and poisoned her against them. The projection was stunning, accusing me of exactly what Mother had done. When Monica warned this would get uglier before it got better, I finally understood what she meant about family cases being the worst kind of legal battle. The call from Human Resources came on a Tuesday morning that started like any other. My supervisor's voice was professionally sympathetic as she explained that Brennan Marketing Associates had received multiple calls from concerned parties about my alleged drug use and mental health issues. Despite my clean drug tests and documentation from my therapist confirming I had no substance abuse issues, the company couldn't continue dealing with the constant disruptions. They offered a modest severance package with the condition I wouldn't pursue wrongful termination. Sitting in my car afterward, holding the cardboard box of my desk belongings, I realized Mother had successfully destroyed my professional reputation along with my inheritance. Madison's next attack was more personal and visceral. I returned to my apartment after meeting with Monica to find my front door ajar and my living space destroyed. Every piece of furniture was overturned, grandmother's photos were torn from frames and scattered, and across my bedroom wall in red lipstick was written "Greedy Witch." The security cameras had conveniently malfunctioned that day, but I recognized Madison's handwriting and her signature shade of lipstick. The police took a report but seemed skeptical when I explained the family situation, especially after Mother had been calling them with her drug addict daughter story. Physical intimidation entered the equation when Aunt Linda's son Brett cornered me in a parking garage after a legal meeting. At 6'3" and 250 pounds of barely contained rage, he pushed me against my car while explaining how I was destroying the family. His breath stank of alcohol as he detailed what could happen to selfish little girls who didn't know their place. Only the appearance of a security guard stopped whatever he'd planned next. When I tried filing a police report, Brett claimed I'd approached him aggressively and he was merely defending himself. Without witnesses, it became another he-said-she-said situation that went nowhere. The restraining order Mother filed against me was a masterpiece of manipulation. She claimed I'd been stalking her, making threatening phone calls, and had even attempted to break into her home. Her evidence included doctored phone records and a witness statement from Madison swearing she'd seen me lurking outside Mother's house. The temporary order was granted before I could respond, legally barring me from coming within 500 feet of Mother, her home, or any place she might be. This effectively banned me from Grandmother's church, the cemetery where she was buried, and even certain grocery stores Mother frequented. Identity theft added another layer to my nightmare when credit card companies started calling about maxed-out accounts I'd never opened. Someone had used my social security number to open 5 different cards, running up $30,000 in charges within a week. The purchases included expensive electronics, jewelry, and oddly enough, casino cash advances. While I couldn't prove Mother was behind it, the timing and casino connection seemed more than coincidental. Hours spent on the phone with fraud departments and credit bureaus became my new normal while my credit score plummeted. Jennifer Walsh had been my closest friend until Madison got to her. They'd met at a mutual friend's party, and Madison had spent months cultivating her, sharing twisted versions of our family story. By the time Jennifer confronted me, she fully believed I was a manipulative monster who'd elder abused my way into an inheritance. No amount of evidence could change her mind. Madison's poison had been too effectively administered. The loss of my best friend felt almost worse than losing Derek. She even went so far as to post on social media about supporting Madison through her sister's betrayal. Mother's cruelest manipulation came when she staged a fall down her front stairs, claiming I'd pushed her during a confrontation. The problem with her story was that I'd been in a documented meeting with Monica 2 hours away when the supposed attack occurred. But Mother had thought of that too, claiming I'd hired someone to attack her since the restraining order prevented me from doing it myself. The police investigation found no evidence, but the accusation made local news. My name associated with elderly abuse allegations was now searchable online forever, another professional death sentence. The harassment at my temporary housing began after Kayla, my traitorous former friend, posted my new address on social media. I'd been staying with Beth, the kind neighbor who'd first warned me about Mother's schemes. Once my location was public, we endured nightly doorbell ringing, garbage thrown on the lawn, and threatening notes left under windshield wipers. Beth stayed strong, but I could see the strain wearing on her. When her own grown children started pressuring her to kick me out for their safety, I knew I'd have to find another solution soon. A ray of hope came through Sandra, Uncle Raymond's wife, who reached out secretly through a burner phone. She'd been watching the family destroy me and couldn't stay silent anymore. Sandra revealed that Mother had been promising various family members specific amounts once the legal battle ended. Aunt Linda expected $50,000, Brett was promised a new truck, and even distant cousins had been offered bribes for their support. More importantly, she'd overheard Mother and Madison discussing moving money offshore, confirming Carlos the investigator's suspicions about hidden assets. The darkest moment came when I was leaving Monica's office after a particularly difficult strategy session. The parking garage was empty except for 2 men who seemed to materialize from shadows. They didn't touch me, didn't need to. They simply explained in calm, professional voices that my mother owed the wrong people money, and if she couldn't pay because of frozen assets, they'd have to collect from family instead. The threat was clear: drop the lawsuit or face consequences Mother's gambling debts had created. As they walked away, one mentioned they knew where Beth lived too. That night, I barely slept, wondering if recovering my inheritance was worth risking innocent people's safety. The call from Harold Morrison, grandmother's original attorney, came at 3 a.m. with news that would change everything. His secretary had been organizing old files when she discovered an anomaly in grandmother's records. There was a reference to a safe deposit box at First National Bank that hadn't been included in the estate inventory. More intriguingly, the box rental had been paid for 10 years in advance, with explicit instructions that only I could access it after grandmother's death. By dawn, Monica and I were sitting in a bank vault, my hands shaking as I inserted the key Harold had overnight to me. Inside the box was a treasure trove of evidence that made Monica gasp. Grandmother had documented everything with the methodical precision of someone who knew her daughter too well. There were bank statements showing systematic withdrawals Mother had made, forged signatures on loan documents, and photographs of Mother at casinos dating back years. But the crown jewel was a sealed envelope marked only for Audrey video evidence inside. The USB drive contained a 30-minute video of grandmother, clear-minded and articulate, recorded just 6 months before her dementia progressed. She spoke directly to the camera about her fears, her love for me, and her detailed wishes for the house. Forensic accountant Malik Thompson's analysis of the financial records revealed a staggering pattern of theft. Over the past decade, Mother had stolen approximately $400,000 from grandmother through various schemes. She'd refinanced the house 3 times without grandmother's knowledge, taken out credit cards in her name, and systematically drained retirement accounts. The paper trail was extensive and damning. Malik's professional opinion was that this represented one of the most comprehensive elder financial abuse cases he'd encountered. His detailed report would be devastating in court. Madison's European vacation Instagram posts became an unexpected asset when Monica realized their legal significance. Every luxury hotel receipt, designer purchase, and 5-star dinner photographed represented traceable proceeds from fraud. Madison had essentially created a digital evidence trail of her spending my stolen inheritance. Her posts from a Swiss banking town were particularly interesting, showing her and Mother together at what looked like financial institutions. The metadata from the photos provided dates and locations that matched suspicious wire transfers from Mother's accounts. Ryan Chen, my former colleague from Brennan Marketing, reached out with a job offer that felt like a lifeline. He'd started his own digital marketing firm and needed someone with my expertise. More importantly, he'd never believed the rumors about me, having experienced Mother's unhinged visit to our office firsthand. The position offered remote work, eliminating the risk of workplace harassment, and a salary that would help with mounting legal bills. Having stable income again meant I could fight this battle without the constant fear of bankruptcy. The investigation into Mother's financial history revealed she'd been embezzling from grandmother since before grandfather's death 15 years ago. She'd convinced grandmother to sign powers of attorney during grandfather's illness, ostensibly to help manage medical bills. Instead, she'd used them to slowly bleed the estate dry. The gambling addiction had started around the same time, possibly triggered by the easy access to money. Casinos across 3 states had records of her losses, and several had banned her for suspicious behavior involving attempts to use grandmother's credit cards. Judge Thompson showed immediate interest when Monica presented our enhanced evidence at the preliminary hearing. His expression darkened as he reviewed the video testimony, and he ordered an immediate forensic audit of all family financial transactions for the past decade. He also expanded the asset freeze to include any accounts that had received transfers from the house sale proceeds. Mother's lawyer, Bradley Thornton, seemed visibly shaken by the evidence's scope. His confident bluster faded as he realized his client had lied to him about the case's nature. The tide turned publicly when Natasha Williams, an investigative reporter specializing in elder abuse, picked up the story. Her research uncovered similar schemes Mother had attempted with other elderly relatives, though none as successful as with grandmother. The article featured interviews with Margaret and other church friends who corroborated grandmother's fears about her daughter. When the story went viral, the narrative shifted from family drama to criminal exploitation. Suddenly, I wasn't the villain but the victim who'd fought to honor her grandmother's wishes against a predatory family. Mother's gambling connections became a liability when the men who'd threatened me were arrested in an unrelated federal investigation. Facing serious charges, one offered information about other crimes in exchange for leniency. He revealed details about Mother's debts and the pressure she'd been under to pay. This explained the desperate house sale and the promises to distribute money to family members. She'd been robbing Peter to pay Paul, using the inheritance to save herself from dangerous creditors while buying family loyalty with promised payouts. Aunt Linda's husband George reached his breaking point when he discovered the extent of his wife's involvement. He'd thought she'd simply witnessed a signature as a family favor. Learning about the forgery conspiracy and promised payments changed everything. George brought me copies of emails between Linda and Mother discussing their plans, including Linda's role in discrediting me to extended family. His decision to support my case over his wife's crimes showed more integrity than I'd seen from any family member. Linda's subsequent meltdown and threats against both of us only strengthened his resolve. The local news coverage evolved from sensational family feud to serious investigation of elder financial abuse patterns in our community. Natasha's follow-up pieces revealed this wasn't uncommon. Adult children stealing from aging parents happened more frequently than anyone wanted to admit. My case became a cautionary tale that prompted other families to examine their own financial arrangements. The prosecutor's office, responding to public pressure and mounting evidence, announced they were opening a criminal investigation into Mother and Madison's actions. What had started as a civil lawsuit was becoming something much more serious. The courtroom on Judgment Day felt electric with tension as family members filled every available seat, clearly divided into two camps. Mother entered wearing a conservative black suit, trying to project respectability, while Madison had chosen an inappropriately bright designer dress, probably purchased with my inheritance money. They sat with Bradley Thornton, whose confident facade had crumbled over weeks of damaging revelations. Our side included Monica, Beth, George, Margaret, and surprisingly, several of grandmother's church friends who'd driven hours to support me. The rest of the family packed Mother's side, still hoping for their promised payouts. Monica's opening statement was a masterclass in legal storytelling, weaving together evidence of systematic elder abuse, inheritance fraud, and criminal conspiracy. She played excerpts from grandmother's video testimony on the courtroom screens, letting grandmother's own words explain her wishes and fears. The room fell silent hearing grandmother describe finding her accounts emptied and being told by Mother that she was imagining things. When grandmother looked directly at the camera and said she was recording this because she feared what Diane would do after her death, several jurors visibly shifted uncomfortably. Mother's lawyer attempted to paint me as a calculating gold digger who'd manipulated a vulnerable elderly woman, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. The evidence Monica had compiled was overwhelming, and Bradley knew it. His cross-examination attempts fell flat when faced with documented forgeries, casino records, and grandmother's video testimony. When he tried to suggest the video was coerced, Monica produced the notarized affidavit from the videographer, a retired judge who'd volunteered to record grandmother's statement after hearing her concerns at church. The forensic evidence presentation was devastating. Malik Thompson walked the court through a decade of financial exploitation, using charts and graphs to show how Mother had systematically drained over $400,000 from grandmother's accounts. He highlighted the pattern of withdrawals coinciding with casino activity, the forged loan documents, and the hidden credit cards. When he showed that Mother had stolen more than the house was worth before even selling it, the prosecutor taking notes in the gallery leaned forward with intense interest. Madison's testimony became the trial's most dramatic moment when her composure cracked under Monica's questioning. Asked about her European trip financing, she initially stuck to her smart investments story. But when Monica produced her social media post showing her and Mother at Swiss banks, Madison panicked. Her attempt to explain why she'd captioned one photo "moving money where greedy sisters can't touch it" resulted in a stammering admission that Mother had promised her the inheritance money for the trip. The admission that she knew the money came from selling my house before the sale happened effectively confessed to conspiracy. Aunt Linda's perjury unraveled spectacularly when Monica presented the email evidence George had provided. Caught in lies about witnessing legitimate signatures, Linda tried claiming she'd been confused about dates and documents. Monica's methodical destruction of each excuse was surgical. When shown an email where Linda discussed forging my signature with Mother, she broke down crying and admitted everything. Her testimony revealed the broader family conspiracy, naming relatives who'd been promised money and detailing Mother's plans to distribute the stolen funds. Bradley Thornton's sudden motion to withdraw from representing Mother shocked everyone, including his clients. He stated that evidence presented during trial revealed his clients had materially misrepresented facts, making continued representation impossible. The judge's granting of his motion left Mother scrambling to speak for herself, which proved disastrous. Her narcissistic inability to accept wrongdoing led to rambling speeches about ungrateful children and how she deserved the money more than I did. When she accidentally admitted to taking money from grandmother's accounts because she wasn't using it anyway, the prosecutor's smile was predatory. Father Keith's testimony was pathetic in its weakness. Called as Mother's witness, he instead became evidence of her decades-long manipulation. Under gentle questioning from Monica, he revealed knowing about the gambling addiction, the stolen money, and the forged signatures. His excuse that he thought it was better to keep families together rang hollow when Monica asked if he'd considered protecting his daughter from criminal parents. His mumbled admission that Mother controlled all their finances and he feared her reaction if he intervened painted a picture of complicity through cowardice. The judge's decision to allow victim impact statements gave me the opportunity to speak my truth directly. Standing before the packed courtroom, I talked about losing not just an inheritance but my entire family structure. I described caring for grandmother while others schemed to rob her, discovering the depth of betrayal from those who should have protected both of us, and the systematic destruction of my life when I tried to honor grandmother's wishes. When I finished by saying the real inheritance grandmother left was knowing I'd been truly loved by at least one family member, Margaret and several others were crying. Character witnesses for our side painted a drastically different picture than Mother's narrative. Former co-workers testified about my work ethic and integrity, refuting drug addiction claims. Grandmother's doctor confirmed I'd been her primary caregiver and the only family member who attended medical appointments. Church friends described Mother's rare visits, usually coinciding with requests for money, contrasting with my regular presence at grandmother's side. The truth steadily emerged through testimony that couldn't be dismissed as one person's vendetta. The criminal charges announcement came during a trial recess when the prosecutor formally arrested Mother and Madison for elder abuse, fraud, and identity theft. Watching them handcuffed in their designer clothes felt surreal. Mother's shrieking about injustice echoed through courthouse halls while Madison sobbed about her ruined life. The family members who'd supported them scattered like roaches when lights turn on, suddenly remembering urgent appointments elsewhere. The promised payouts evaporated with the handcuffs clicking shut. Judge Thompson's final ruling was comprehensive and damning. He ordered full restitution of all stolen funds plus punitive damages, returning the house sale proceeds to me and requiring Mother to pay back every penny stolen from grandmother's estate. The forensic accounting would determine exact amounts, but estimates exceeded $600,000. He referred extensive evidence to criminal prosecutors and issued permanent restraining orders protecting me from the conspirators. His closing statement about the egregious violation of filial duty and trust would haunt Mother through her upcoming criminal trial. 6 months after the trial ended, I stood in grandmother's garden planting the rosebushes she'd always wanted but could never afford because Mother kept draining her accounts. The house was mine again, legally and rightfully, though recovering it had cost me almost every other family relationship. The developer who'd bought it was surprisingly understanding about the situation, accepting a full refund plus modest compensation for his troubles. Walking through rooms filled with memories, I felt grandmother's presence in every corner, finally at peace knowing her wishes had been honored. Mother's criminal trial resulted in a 5-year prison sentence for elder abuse, fraud, and identity theft. The courtroom was nearly empty for her sentencing. The family members who'd rallied behind her for promised money had vanished once the well ran dry. She'd aged dramatically during the proceedings, her designer clothes replaced with jail uniforms, her perfectly styled hair now gray at the roots. When given the chance to speak, she still couldn't accept responsibility, blaming everyone but herself. The judge's harsh sentence reflected both the crime's severity and her complete lack of remorse. Madison received 2 years probation and mandatory community service at a senior center, which she treated as the ultimate injustice. Her Instagram influencer dreams shattered when the fraud story went viral. Brands distanced themselves from someone who'd vacationed on stolen inheritance money. The European trip photos that had once showcased her glamorous life became evidence exhibits in criminal proceedings. Last I heard, she was working retail again and living with friends, our father having finally drawn boundaries after mother's imprisonment. The process of rebuilding family relationships proved selective and painful. Father Keith, freed from mother's immediate influence, slowly began acknowledging his failures as a parent. Our coffee meetings started awkwardly but gradually became genuine conversations about how he'd lost himself in a toxic marriage. While I couldn't fully forgive his complicity, I understood how mother's manipulation had broken him too. He filed for divorce while she was imprisoned, finally choosing growth over comfortable dysfunction. George and Sandra became unexpected pillars of my rebuilt family structure. George's courage in standing against his wife's crimes cost him his marriage but gained him integrity. Sandra's inside information had been crucial for our victory. They invited me for holidays, understanding that traditional family gatherings were forever tainted. Their adult children, initially skeptical, gradually accepted me after learning the truth. Sometimes chosen family fills spaces blood relatives abandoned. Creating the Rose Garden Foundation for Elder Financial Abuse Prevention became my grandmother's true legacy. Using part of the recovered funds, I established programs helping families recognize and prevent financial exploitation. Monica joined as legal advisor, passionate about the cause after witnessing our case. The foundation offered free consultations, educational seminars, and support groups for victims. Within a year, we'd helped dozens of families protect their elderly members from predatory relatives. The foundation's support group introduced me to Benjamin, a soft-spoken teacher whose aunt had suffered similar exploitation. Our shared experiences created initial connection, but his genuine kindness and patience built something deeper. He understood why I flinched at family gatherings, why I triple-checked legal documents, why trust came slowly. Our relationship developed carefully, built on mutual respect rather than rushing toward false security. When he suggested dinner at his parents' house after 6 months, I appreciated that he'd waited until I was ready. Madison's first apology letter arrived 8 months into her probation, clearly written to satisfy court requirements rather than genuine remorse. The second came 2 months later, slightly more authentic but still focused on her losses rather than accountability. By the fourth letter, something had shifted. Working at the senior center had apparently opened her eyes to vulnerability she'd never considered. While I couldn't bring myself to respond, I kept the letters, evidence that people might change even if relationships couldn't be restored. The house renovation became therapeutic, each improvement erasing painful associations while honoring grandmother's memory. I converted mother's favorite sitting room into a foundation office, replacing manipulation space with one dedicated to protecting others. Grandfather's workshop, locked for years, became functional again, his tools restored and used. The garden bloomed magnificently, as if grandmother's spirit nourished every plant. Neighbors who'd watched the family drama unfold stopped by with seedlings and support, building community where family had failed. Ryan's marketing firm flourished, and my remote position evolved into partnership. Professional success felt sweeter after mother had tried destroying my career. Former Brennan colleagues reached out apologizing for believing rumors, though I kept those relationships surface level. Trust, once shattered, required careful reconstruction. The online traces of mother's smear campaign faded as new search results about the foundation's work superseded old lies. Digital redemption paralleled personal healing. Prison visiting day requests from mother went unanswered for the first year. The letters she sent alternated between manipulation attempts and rage, showing no genuine growth. When I finally visited, bringing Margaret as support, mother looked diminished in orange jumpsuit and defeat. She spent the hour complaining about prison conditions and asking for money, never once acknowledging her crimes. Walking away, I felt only pity for someone so consumed by greed that she'd destroyed every meaningful relationship for casino chips. The Foundation's first major success came when we helped prosecute a son who'd been draining his father's veteran benefits. The case paralleled mine closely, and testifying as expert witness felt like coming full circle. The elderly father reminded me of grandmother, trusting family until betrayal became undeniable. Watching him regain financial security while his son faced consequences validated every difficult choice I'd made. Justice, though painful, protected the vulnerable. Unexpected reconciliation came through cousin Stephanie, who reached out after her parents' divorce. She'd been young during the conspiracy, following her mother's lead without understanding implications. Now adult and independent, she sought truth about family dynamics. Our coffee meetings revealed how thoroughly the older generation had poisoned relationships with lies. While we couldn't reclaim cousin closeness, we built adult friendship based on honest acknowledgement of the past. Benjamin proposed in grandmother's garden on a spring morning when roses bloomed spectacularly. He'd asked Margaret and Beth's blessing first, understanding they'd become my true family. The small wedding we planned reflected lessons learned about distinguishing genuine love from obligatory connection. The guest list included people who'd stood by me during darkness, not those claiming family bonds while wielding knives. Grandmother's wedding ring, hidden in the safe deposit box, completed the ceremony's meaning. Standing in the garden now, 3 years after that first horrible discovery of the sold sign, I understood grandmother's true inheritance. It wasn't just the house or money, though recovering those mattered. She'd given me strength to stand against family who'd weaponized love, wisdom to recognize genuine from false loyalty, and courage to build life authentic to my values rather than their expectations. The family I'd lost revealed themselves as strangers who shared only blood. The family I'd gained chose connection through integrity. Mother would be eligible for parole next year, though her inability to acknowledge wrongdoing made approval unlikely. Madison had completed probation and moved across the country, occasionally sending updates about her work with seniors. Whether genuine transformation or performed redemption, distance made the question irrelevant. Father continued his journey toward accountability, understanding that healing required consistent action, not just apologetic words. Some relationships ended at betrayal, others evolved toward cautious hope. The Foundation expanded into 3 states, helping hundreds of families protect vulnerable elders from financial exploitation. Every success story honored grandmother's memory better than any monument. When elderly clients thanked me for understanding their situations, I shared enough of my story to show survival was possible. Pain transformed into purpose, creating meaning from suffering. Grandmother would be proud that her death exposed corruption, but more proud that exposure led to protection for others. This journey taught me that family isn't obligatory blood connection but chosen bonds of trust and respect. Real inheritance isn't money or property but values that survive attempted destruction. When someone shows you who they are through actions rather than words, believe them the first time. Guard your heart carefully, but don't let necessary caution prevent building genuine connections with those who prove themselves trustworthy. Sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is showing their true nature so clearly that walking away becomes not just possible but necessary for survival. If you've experienced similar family betrayal or elder financial abuse, please share your story in the comments below. Your experiences might help others recognize warning signs or find courage to seek justice. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to support content that addresses difficult family realities. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that surviving family betrayal is possible and that choosing integrity over toxic loyalty is always the right decision. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes losing a toxic family is the first step toward finding your true home.